Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and I'm super excited about today's guest. He has a newer platform that is fantastic for finding speaking gigs, podcasts, and even conferences and events for you to speak at. So it's a little different than what we've highlighted in the past, and I think you guys will be really excited about this. I also want to remind you to go over and grab your free subscription of Breakthrough Author Magazine. You can find that at www.breakthroughauthormagazine.com. If you're looking for ways to build your platform, this is an excellent magazine. We have speaking experts, publishing experts, platform building experts, content experts, AI and content experts. We've got everything over there. And, we know that the platform building can be a very slow process. If you're writing a book, you need to have that platform. You need to start at least a year in advance because it is a slow build. And this is where you're testing and validating. Are your ideas good? Is that audience going to follow you? Are you speaking to them correctly? So just wanted to remind you to go over and grab this free resource. It drops into your inbox the first of every month and could be really, really helpful for you in laying out the plan to build. So before we get started today, I want to tell you about our sponsor. Our sponsor is LifeWave, and you can find them at calendly.com/thefoolishcouple/superbrand. Now, I don't know how much you know about their X39 product, but I am super holistic. I mean, I can't even tell you. I don't take anything that is not either organic or good for you. So no pharmaceuticals, nothing like that pours chemicals into my body. That's what I love about X39 is when I have aches and pains, it's a patch that you put on for 12 hours. And it is a fabulous patch that usually, as athletic as I am, I see results pretty much overnight if I wear it overnight. So if you want to find out more about this LifeWave patch that is amazing, go over to calendly.com/thefoolishcouple/superbrand and check it out today. I can guarantee you it is well worth the money, and it's keeping me in my old age kind of out there and athletic and feeling really good. So let's stay tuned for our guest, Ron Story. Ron Story Jr. is an entrepreneur and a founder of a podcast service called PitchDB with a long history of self-made business ventures. Starting from a young age, he began his entrepreneurial journey by collecting and recycling aluminum cans to afford the toys he wanted. That's my story too, only I cleaned houses. This early experience sparked his drive to solve problems and achieve his goals, which has continued into his adult life. Ron Story Jr. has been involved in the creation, development, and leadership of over 30 companies, demonstrating a strong commitment to entrepreneurship and innovation. And I think you guys are going to love this platform. It's my new go-to as well. So stay tuned for Ron. Hey, Ron, it's great to have you here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Juliet.
Hey, I am really excited about PitchDB because authors need this so badly, not only for the platform building, but after their book is released as well. So can you tell us a little bit about what PitchDB is and why you built it?
Yeah, so back in 2012, I started to set sales meetings for private equity firms doing using what we call cold email or email outreach. And one of my friends, she came to me, she knew I had been doing this successfully. And she says, hey, can you get me some speaking gigs using this technique? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I can get you the gig, but I can get you the meeting with the person who books the gigs. And so that's how we got started. And then, COVID-19 happened or whatever. And we had to get away from speaking gigs because there were no speaking gigs. Right. So the next logical step was to look at podcasts. So when we first started, we started off with a few thousand podcasts, and now we have 3.4 million podcasts in our database that we've built over time. But it really came from taking a skill that I had and trying to solve a problem for a friend who was an author. So she had written 4 books. She had a new book coming out, and she was like, "Yo, I would love to go and do some speaking, some speaking opportunities, and then they'll let me sell my book in the back of the room, or I can include it with the speaking fee. That's a good way for me to get booking." So that's how we got started.
That's amazing. That's sort of how we got started too. I actually started this company for my own books, and then as they were selling, I had one book that sold over 25,000 copies. People started coming to me saying, "I want that." So that isn't that funny how we develop something for ourselves and our friends, and then it turns into our pretty much lifelong passion. So what I love about your platform is that there are others out there. We know that there's one that's sort of like a dating service that matches you. There's another that just gives you a list. Yours actually takes the information that people put in the system and pitches for them using AI. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we did the hard part. We went and got all the data, right? And then we provide that data to you, and you get to send the email from your personal email address. So they don't know we exist. So,
Right.
a bunch of people aren't getting emails from PitchDB. They'll get an email from Juliet Clark or Ron Story or James Brown or whomever, right? It
Mhm.
comes from your personal email account. So what we saw was that certain people were building the legs of the elephant and the ears of the elephant and the trunk. And we just decided, why don't we just put the whole elephant together instead of them having to go get the data, make sure the data is valid, put it into Chat GPT for them to write the email, make sure it's the right podcast or speaking gig that fits for them, just a whole bunch of stuff. How can we get this done and have the person ready to click send in under a minute? So you can hop in, our AI will match you to the right podcast based on your profile.
Uh-huh.
Once you approve that podcast, it will write the email for you. And then you just click send that you approve it.
That is amazing and so little work. And what I love about it is you're just not limited to podcasts. So let's back up a little. If you're a potential author or an upcoming author, you should be out there on Ron's site a good year before your book ever comes out, getting matched, having a landing page, driving traffic to that landing page, either about an upcoming book or just list building in general. But you also go into speaking gigs where you can sell your book and conferences, which I don't think there's another platform out there that does all of that. So can you talk about the speaking gigs? So is that a separate part from the podcast, or how does that all work?
So we try to solve 3 problems. We call it the 3 Ps. We want you to get booked on podcasts, public speaking, and press. So we have 3.4 million podcasts. We have about 19,000 speaking gigs, whether there's conferences or local associations that do meetings and quarterly meetings. And then we have about 37,000 press contacts, right? So those numbers are where they are currently, but they constantly go up because we find new data every month and new contacts every month. Um, so that's where we are right now. So if someone wants to get booked on podcasts to build that momentum and then get some press about their launch, right? That's always a good thing. Imagine being in a national or international magazine at launch and then being able to go out and promote doing a road tour via speaking gigs. You can do all of that within PitchDB.
Yeah. And you know what's great, you guys, is when you build your media page. Imagine somebody hearing about your book and you've already been on this for a good year and a half, and you've got all this media on your site that people are looking at, and then your book's coming out and they're going, I need to contact her, instead of you being the outreach all the time. People are seeking you out now as well. So tell us a little bit about the people that are using it. You said you have a lot of authors that are using it. How do you see them really benefiting from what they're doing, some of the techniques you've seen? Because you said you have over 900 authors on the site, right?
Yep. So basically what happens is that selling a book is usually a low cost product to sell. So you may get $20 for it, or you may give it away for free on Kindle Unlimited, right?
Mhm.
So the marketing budget for someone that's self-published usually isn't as high as someone at Simon and Schuster or some big company like that. So you have to find what we call growth hacks as a way to build momentum for what you're doing, whether that's building your email list beforehand or doing things of that sort. So a lot of authors will just do a podcast tour. They will try to go on 1 to 2 podcasts every week for at least 6 months prior to the launch of the book, because they're list building. They're building up their list of people who are interested in the topic. They're learning different things that maybe, they're getting new information and strengthening some of their ideas before it goes into final edit. All of these different things are being tested out on the podcast, right? So what happens is you go on a podcast, you have a really good idea, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I left that part out of the book. This was just something I was riffing about on the topic. Let me go and put that in part of the, in this chapter on this topic, because I didn't realize that was so important. So you can use the podcast to get live feedback on some of the content creation and things that you may have missed in your original drafts, right? So that's one of the most innovative things I think people have done, is that they've done live curation, because we know that the more we talk about something, we get new ideas as we add more context to it after several conversations. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that I've seen, is those who have done a lot of shows. I've learned after talking with them that the book has changed a little bit as it's gone,
Exactly. So you guys, I think I mentioned that in the intro. That's where this validation comes in from your author platform building. You have an idea, you throw it out there, you think you know who your audience is, and then you notice that the audience isn't responding. That's a change. It's either a change of audience or a change of content. So this is why we tell you to get on a site like this so far in advance, because you're going to want to validate that audience and really refine not only your avatar, but your content and everything you're putting out there. And Ron, you don't know this, but we have a book coming out in April that they brought to me in March of last year. And I literally said to the author, I have no idea who this book is for. And so we got into what we call gold marketing, which is our own system, own language system. And then he just brought the book back 2 months ago, and it's rewritten into the language of that audience, because he didn't have one. He didn't know. So this is where you guys, especially if you are, so that book is a nurture tool. If your nurture tool isn't working, and you're supposed to get your ROI from the publishing package from the nurture tool, and the ROI comes from that bigger program, you're not going to be able to take them from point B to point C without that validation in, we'll call it point A. So I really love this too. As far as organizations and things like that, what kinds of organizations, when you have them in there for media, is it media that is looking for people when you talk about the press, or is it how exactly does that work? Because I know there's things out there like Haro too.
Yeah, so we're a little bit different than Haro, right? Because we'll give you the local radio station in your town. Right? We'll give you the local television station in your town. Have a lot of financial advisors who will reach out to the local television station to be on the morning news, to get, a regular segment on the morning news, to be their financial answer man, right?
Yeah.
So if you have authors that are in nonfiction areas, local television and local radio is where you can kind of develop local expertise. And then that becomes part of your media reel when you want to go a bit broader. So in our media package, we go local to international. So there's Forbes magazine, and then there's KTVI television station in St. Louis, right? So, it's that localized. So we have radio stations, newspapers, magazine editors, and journalists. Those journalists are different from the editors, because the editor only works for that one magazine. A journalist may write for 80 different magazines.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you may be able to pitch them a story that you may not even know where it fits, but they have an idea of where they can place that story. It may be in Working Women's Magazine. It may be in the Mom's Journal. It may be in Parenting. It may be in whatever. It may be in Forbes Women, right? But they will decide where they think they can place that article based on the topic of your book, so forth and so on. So we give you access to all of that inside of PitchDB. And it writes a personalized pitch. That's the part I think people struggle with is, even though these are authors, it's still, we still get in the way sometimes of how do I personalize this so that this person understands what I'm doing. And our AI does a good job of not embarrassing you.
Well, that's a good thing though, because you, in order to get your foot in the door with the journalist, it has to be something that's relevant. And we always tell our authors, it's part of our Build Your Author Avatar program, that you may be hooked into one media outlet style, a CNN and an MSNBC, and you don't look at a Fox or a Newsmax. And the truth is, if you can figure out the relevance, if you go over to Fox, even though you don't like it, and you listen, you might hear, oh, there's a spot for my book. Basically, you're cutting, if you don't do that, you're cutting out half of the audience that you could potentially have for everything you do. So, that's what I love about AI, is it's going to pick up those relevant pieces to probably make it where your relevant is with the media outlets, which is really needed.
Well, I think the great things about authors is that they wrote the book because they have a different perspective, right? So I think as an author, I found that authors that have been the most effective, like the books that I buy all the time, and that's how I judge effectiveness, is if I bought the book, right? They're usually not going on a show that they agree with. So it's usually the person that's asking them the tough questions. And when they're able to defend their point of view, I'm like, oh, dude, I never thought about that. This is an interesting point of view. Let me check out their YouTube videos or something else, or maybe even buy the book on Audible so that I can get more of their perspective. So I don't usually suggest people only go on shows with people that they agree with. I think you learn, you don't know what you believe until you have to defend it. Right. and it's better to go in a fair environment where it's you and the podcast host kind of having this healthy debate versus you trying to fight people in the comments on a YouTube channel or on a video that gets put out, and the people are arguing with you in the comments and they're just trolling you. Right. So it's better to get this out and to be able to defend your point and be able to share a different perspective. You'll find that confrontation doesn't always have to be hostile. So you can win a lot of friends or win a lot of followers out of respect, versus it just being a hug and kiss fest.
Yeah. And here's the other thing why you guys should take a look at this. I think I've mentioned before, Leslie Michaels wrote a book on women's lib, basically, which super, super popular on, CNN's, the more liberal channels. But here was the thing, every time the media consultant tried to place her there, she's up against really big names. So there was one gig that Maureen Dowd got over her. And of course she did, because everybody knows who Maureen Dowd is. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, she kept turning down the Newsmax and the Fox News. They were interested in talking to her. Probably would have been a little bit more contentious debate, but she would have gotten the exposure. So, you can't always rely on that audience you have in common either, because you may not be a big name in that audience yet. So,
well, I think one of the things that I've learned in life is I can always learn something from the other people too. Right. So even though, like, now we're on this, I'm on your podcast and you're asking for my perspective, but I guarantee you, I'm going to, when this is over, I'll have a list of notes of things that I've learned that you talked about. Right. So I think you can learn something from everybody. And if you keep that open mind that, hey, your job is to serve the people and to get the message out. It's not to really go and pick fights. And, just so if someone wants to fight, just say, hey, man, I agree with you, but I just see it differently. And they get confused by that. They're like, well, how do you agree with me and see it differently? It's completely possible. And I'll give you an example of this. If someone only had the perspective of looking at this from this perspective, if it was just a shadow, they would say, oh, that's just a black line, right? And it's about 5 inches wide. But the person that sees it from this side will say, oh, that's just a black line and it's 3 inches wide. But the person that sees it this way says, oh, that's a square. That's not a line at all. All three of them are right and all three of them are wrong at the same time because it's three-dimensional, right? So you can agree with someone and still have a different perspective. And I think that the best interviews are those where you respect the interviewer, but you still are confident in what you believe too, and that's okay.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I gave a talk at a high school AP class many years ago, right after an incident had happened on TV. And it was really illuminating because there were these three women all over TV saying different things. But you look at the event and you start to understand, well, why is that woman out there grabbing her child? Well, that's her experience with the police in that community. Why is this woman, battering that woman for that grab? Well, that's her experience in that community. So there really can be all those differing, ways that we see things that we can learn from each other. I think we all got into this I have to fight mode from like X and Facebook, and because really I've gotten off of all those platforms because I think they're the most toxic places you can be.
Well, I'll give you a platform that's been around for several thousand years, and you don't have to be religious to understand this, but I think there's a reason why it's done, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the first four chapters, first four books of the New Testament are
Uh-huh.
four different perspectives of their experiences with the same guy,
Yeah.
right? Some of them have the same stories, some of them don't have the same stories, but they're talking about the same things from different perspectives in their different vantage points. It's
Mhm.
okay. That's they needed four different vantage points to explain this dude, right? So
Right.
why can't you go somewhere else and have your vantage point too, and still be able to help the people that may see part of what you're saying? Because I don't agree with everything everybody I listen to says. So it's
Right.
healthy to have someone else come on and say, yeah, I like his point over here, but I like this person over here. So to not kind of beat a dead horse about going on different platforms, I think um, all press is good press, right?
Mhm.
All coverage is good coverage. So if you're confident in what you believe, I think you should share it with as many people as possible.
Do you love that? He just used the Bible as a marketing tool. That was awesome.
And I didn't even have to mention the guy.
We all know who the guy is.
You see
Okay,
how easy
so
that is? So I could not offend the people who don't want to hear Jesus, but I can be relevant to the people who understand what I'm talking about. And it works.
yeah, it really does. So how do we get on your platform? And are there some best practices that we should use once we get there?
Yes. So the easiest way is to use the link in the bio of what of the show notes of what we're doing today, and that link will get you a free trial and a discount, right? So you'll get a free trial of the software that's extended beyond the normal trial, right? Which is a good thing, right? But PitchDB starts at $27 a month, and that's for our podcast plan. That'll usually get you on 3 to 4 podcasts a month, right? For $27. And then if you want to add speaking gigs and access to the press, it can go up a little higher, $89 and 147. But the basis is go in and try it. I think trying it out is the best place to start because
Mhm.
then there's no excuse, right? With the trial, you can go in and see how it works. You can use all the AI features. You can see which podcasts we matched you with, which press opportunities we matched you with, and see if you get some results. And so that's where I would start. Here's what we offer to everyone. If you use
Okay.
our system for a year and you actually send the pitches, right? And you're not happy, we'll give you 3 times your money back at the end of the 12 months. You know,
Wow.
so we're that confident. We work with over 300 people where we do it for them. And we've never had anyone say, we don't want to use this because it doesn't work. They've never asked for their money back. So we're very confident in our service and the data that we provide you. So yeah, I would go to pitchdb.com, but use the link in the bio. That'll get you a special deal that you won't get if you just go directly to the website. And I think, that's the best way to go.
Wow, this is really great. Ron, thank you so much for being on today. This was fantastic. And I actually, when we turn this recording off, I have a question for you, but we're going to be using this platform and hopefully we'll be sending most of our clients over there as well because they all really need it.
Yeah, I would love to have them as clients. And, any friend of yours is a friend of ours. So we would love to have.
Thank you.